Hello and most welcome to 1796. We will continue today the article by Heather Macumber, The Threat of Empire, Monstrous Hybridity in Revelation 13. Last time in 1793, we spoke about the dragons and how they had different places and the monsters have a double figure, a fundamental principle often overlooked is that the double and the monster are one and the same thing. It is a most interesting observation how the double sense, or the duck rabbit if you like, the ambiguity makes it possible to have one clear objective. And also how it's possible to both serve God and Rome. That's another important realization. And of course, these understandings are coming all the way back from Jacques Derrida and his article Life, Death, where he shows how important the double take is for one clear principle and one clear understanding. We further our realization of that when he went deeper and deeper into what Bernard Canguilhem and François Jacob makes for very muddled thinking, where they try to uphold private language in the mostly in the form of an idea of that words can be monosemic, have only one easily removable purpose or meaning somewhere inside the word, and without any connection to the rest of the contextual structure, being a sort of meaning isolate. And this is also pretty close to the view of Saul Kripke, although he does not in any way go as far as most analytical philosophers or academia, which is mainly analytical today. But he has some sort of isolated language. Each person have their language isolate. Heaven is only possible if we acknowledge world. The soul can only come through the recognition of the body. A crouched man is not a soulful person. Having a soul is not an owner possession. It's a way of being. And we continue, we could, where we left off at page 119. Monsters are often used as warnings or symbols, and the dragon as a figure of chaos was well known in the ancient world. John states, the great dragon was thrown down, the ancient serpent, who is called the devil or Satan, the deceiver of the whole world. The dragon in the hands of John becomes a symbol for the demonic or evil forces of the world, represented at this moment by the Roman imperial system. However, Jan van Henten makes a convincing argument that John's contemporaries would not instinctively make this connection. The emperor in Roman society was typically portrayed as the opponent of the dragon, whose destruction would restore order to the empire. John's use of Greco-Roman symbols and myths is rather ironic in the light of his commitment to avoid any accommodation with it. Equating the dragon with the Roman Empire becomes a subversive action, allowing John to completely invert contemporary Greco-Roman ideology. This is done primarily to underscore that the earthly empires it represents cannot compete with the authority of God and the Lamb. Monstrous then become the vehicle through which John is able to convince his community that the Roman Empire is the antithesis to the heavenly kingdom he describes. Revelation 13 moves from the heavenly battle between the dragon and heavenly beings to focus on the dynamics between the beasts and human community. The second monster is given no name except the beast rising out of the sea. It has 10 horns and 7 heads with blasphemous names written upon each head, indicating a familial relationship with the dragon. Scholars argue that, though unnamed, this monster is likely a representation of Leviathan, the twisting, multi-headed sea serpent featured prominently in all the traditions of a battle between God and the sea. Reminiscent of Daniel 7, this monster also rises from the sea, a geographical location saturated with mythical significance. The sea, thalassa, typically represents the physical sea, specifically the Mediterranean, but it is also associated with the primordial sea. The place of conflict between God and the monsters of chaos. The mythological connotation of sea in Revelation 13:1 is further strengthened by the earlier mention of this beast in Revelation 11:7. The beast that comes up from the bottomless pit will make war on them and conquer them and kill them. This beast from the sea is generally understood to represent the Roman Empire as a whole, whose power and authority are derived from the dragon. John's intentionally linking the power of the beast from the sea with that of the dragon to reveal his conviction that the Roman Empire is a satanic force and in direct competition with the kingdom of heaven. In contrast to the dragon that threatens both the divine and earthly realms in a direct attack, John reveals that the beast from the sea is a hybrid creature that is not only dangerous, but also impure. Though John is indebted to earlier models of Leviathan, and especially Daniel 7:8, he recreates this monster as a hybrid being whose body is like that of a leopard, its feet like a bear, and a mouth like a lion. This is a surprising move, as the expected depiction of Leviathan is at odds with this new monstrous being who has the familiar multiple heads of the sea serpent, but also possesses features of land animals. A major tenet of monster theory is that monsters break known categories. And the monsters of Revelation 13 do this on several levels. For example, for example, the beast from the sea is presented as an impure entity that mixes known categories of animals. In his discussion of modern monsters, Noel Carroll refers to Mary Douglas's work on Leviticus as a framework for understanding hybridity and impurity. He states they are unnatural relative to a culture's conceptual scheme of nature. They do not fit the scheme, they violate it. Thus, monsters are not only physically threatening, they are cognitively threatening. A key threat, according to Carroll, is that monsters call into question a culture's knowledge of their norms when confronted with these creatures that blur distinctions between noun boundaries. The hybrid feature, or the hybrid features, of John's beast become even more threatening when one realizes that it is essentially not confined to the sea. The audience might rightfully have expected a traditional sea monster, but must account for its hybrid nature that combines characteristics of both serpent and land animals. Thus, the threat of the beast increases as it has the ability to travel on land and widens its reach. In effect, John has created a super monster by combining the beasts of Daniel 7 into one creature that poses a danger for John's community. Secondly, like the monsters of Daniel 7, there's an intentional mixing of human and animal characteristics. Although described in animal terms, this monster has the human ability to speak haughty and blasphemous words. This mixing of the animal and human is a common technique in accordance with monster theory to show that monsters are considered other, unclean, and threatening by those who create them. The initial description of the beast from the sea deliberately recalls and parodies earlier portrayals of the Lamb in Revelation 5. First, the beast from the sea is pictured with 10 horns and 7 heads, with diadems upon each horn and blasphemous names on each head. Earlier in Revelation 5, the Lamb is described as having 7 horns and 7 eyes. And later, John describes Christ wearing many diadems. While both the Lamb and the beast from the sea possesses multiple horns, so too does the red dragon from Revelation 12, who has 7 heads crowned with diadems and 10 horns. Moreover, the dragon and the beast from the sea and Christ are all marked with names or titles. The beast from the sea has blasphemous names written on its heads, while Christ has the words King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Inscribed on his robe and thigh. In addition to possessing a secret name, the term blasphemous names is also associated with the scarlet beast of Revelation 17:3, who possesses these names along with 7 heads and 10 horns. Secondly, the Lamb and the beast from the sea suffer from a mortal wound. The audience had already been introduced to the Lamb in Revelation 5, who looked as if slain. Os esphagmenon. an obvious reference to the death and resurrection of Christ. And yet, a few chapters later, in Revelation 13:3, one encounters a hybrid beast who also shares this miraculous feat of recovering from a mortal wound. Os es phag menin is thanaton. The same verb, sphazo, is used to describe the wound of both the lamb and the beast. In the case of the beast, John provides two additional qualifications. His fatal wound was healed, and the beast that had been wounded by the sword and yet lived. The Greek verb esisen in Revelation 13:14, and yet lived, is the same as that describing Christ's resurrection in Revelation 2:8. There's no question that this monster's deadly wound, like that of the lambs, has been miraculously healed, and that it forms the basis for the subsequent worship of the beast. The purpose of John's parody is to expose the beast's intention, to confuse and disrupt the proper worship of God on earth. The mere appearance of the beast from the sea has the desired result. The whole earth was amazed and followed after the beast and worshipped the dragon. Greg Carey notes, John uses parody to unmask imperial hybris. The empire and its rulers represent not order but chaos. God, and not the emperor, rules the world. John demonstrates throughout Revelation 13 the attraction of this beast for the community as they express amazement and follow it. Moreover, this translates into an act of worship as they transfer their loyalty from God to the beast and ultimately to the dragon. With the deliberate use of the phrase, "Who is like the beast? And who can fight against it?" The worshipper break a symbolic boundary in appropriating and mimicking a typical form of worship for God. David A. de Silva notes that this is a key component of John's rhetoric to provoke indignation and feelings of enmity in his audience. Carey rightly observes that the boundaries separating John and his community from the case of the Roman Empire and its adherents are in disarray and crumbling. John's identification of Rome and Jezebel as monstrous through parody is designed to re-establish these boundaries by alienating his audience from the potential attraction of accommodation in Rome. Beast from the earth, danger and transgression. Following the appearances of the dragon and the beast from the sea, another unnamed beast emerges now from the earth that derives its authority from the first beast and by extension the dragon. It is described as having 2 horns like a lamb and speaking like a dragon. Though the description of this monster is sparse, scholars argue that it represents Behemoth, who is typically paired with the Leviathan. This beast is also associated with later mentions of a false prophet. Little physical description of this land monster is provided, with the exception of the shocking statement, it had horns like a lamb and it spoke like a dragon. Although the beast may look like a lamb, it bears only a superficial similarity, as having received the authority from the beast of the sea, it speaks on behalf of the dragon. John continues to cultivate the disgust of his audience by demonstrating the beast hybrid nature, that it defies normal categories of classification. According to monster theory, this ability to transgress the typical order of nature is a measure of a monster's threat, as it is not bound by the normal rules of the society. In fact, the beast from the earth follows this pattern as we find a catalogue of the danger it holds against humanity, including persuading the worship of the beast of the sea, performing signs and wonders with the intent to deceive, promoting the building of an image of the beast and even animating it. And mandating the mark of the beast to participate in ordinary commerce. The beast from the earth violates not only geographical boundaries, but appears to also have the power to persuade others to follow its will. Unlike the other two monsters, the identity of the beast from the earth is not as clear due to the beast's provenance from the earth. Scholars have generally argued that it represents local indigenous support of the Roman imperial cult rather than Rome itself, which was considered a foreign entity. However, within this larger framework, there are many divergent opinions on the exact identity of the beast. Proposals include the priests and priestesses in the local imperial cult and the administrators, those involved in imperial propaganda, the koinon, and Roman government officials. Friesen rightly argues against trying to find a specific individual or group behind the beast from the land, and instead suggests that the imperial cult infiltrated all levels of society. Along with Adela Collins, he suggests that the elite families of Asia Minor played a significant part in the promotion of the cult, both through its leadership and its popularity. John does not provide enough information to accurately identify the beast from the land, but clearly communicates the level of power it holds over the populace, as it is able to commandeer their devotion and worship to the dragon and to the image of the beast. I think this is a good time to put a pause here to look for some sites. 1796. Before we go into the most interesting shapeshifter chapter. The image of the beast. We have in the last reading many references to oppositions. Oppositions are, as we know since Derrida, quantum mechanics, is an absolute predisposition for purity, both purity of goodness and evil, as we also mentioned here. The only evil that can be is one-sided. If you have both sides, you have the wave and you have the particle. We go to 122. I will jump a bit in my readout here. And we go 7 lines down. While both the lamb and the beast from the sea possesses multiple horns, so too does the red dragon from Revelation 12, who has 7 heads crowned with diadems and 10 horns. Moreover, the dragon, the beast from the sea, and Christ are all marked with names and titles. Did you hear? Both the dragon, the beast from the sea, and Christ are all marked with names or titles. The beast from the sea has blasphemous names written on its head, while Christ has the words King of Kings and Lord of the Lords. So, this will refer to at least 300 of the last lectures. You need to have acknowledged some of that. Will not refer to the last 10 lectures only, but the accumulated understanding of complementarity or oppositions. And it goes actually back all the way to Heraclitus, which we covered in episodes 13, 1400. Something we discussed today briefly was the Theodicee problem or Theodicy problem. Sorry, I don't have the exact pronunciation in English. And the question is one of the strongest opponents to any religion, or at least the Abrahamic religions. How can God be if there is so much evil in earth, on the earth? And one of my colleagues asked, how can God allow a small child to die of cancer? And I think that argument is unbeatable if you don't bring in quantum mechanics and the understanding we got from Heraclitus and even more enforced by Wittgenstein. You cannot have purity if you don't have oppositions. There cannot be one single purely good thing, like Jesus, like life, like permanence, if the opposition is not present. Otherwise, we get a tainted reality. We get this monstrous hybrid, as is described here. The hybrid is the monster, because a hybrid is when you only want good or pure, sort of have that disposition, evil, pure evil. Those are all hybrids, and the monsters are hybrids. A person that tries to uphold pure goodness is in itself a hybrid. There is no big surprise that most people cannot acknowledge this, so to speak, rare logic from quantum mechanics. But one of the few philosophers, thinkers, academia that accepted it say, we need to start with this, what physics tells us, is Graham Priest. He has an understanding for pure goodness, for pure truth. The opposition needs to be present. But if you have this horrid idea of only one side, or monosemia, or only the duck in the duck rabbit, you will have a hybrid monster. You will actually acknowledge what is bad. The only thing that can taint reality is the disregard for reality's opposition. Yin and yang is the origin of purity, goodness, and as we mentioned, in which article, I think some articles ago, could have been Bochum, we spoke about permanence, how there was a new promise of giving permanence to humanity. That permanence can only be if we acknowledge death. Only then can life be absolutely pure and 100%. Otherwise, we have a hybrid. You could call it a zombie. In page 120, we have a bit of a reference. Heather stumbles on the truth by happenstance, I think. Unbeknownst, she uses words that are actually hinting to what I'm talking about. The first sentence here is quite interesting. It's about hybridity and mimicry. And wanting only one side, it's a type of mimicry. too common, and as we recognized earlier, it is not stemming from Christianity, it's coming from Platonism, which I would say gives a completely different take on the Bible. Couldn't be more different if we were to rewrite the whole Bible and the whole Christian tradition. It is absolutely alien. But at the same time, it is a tendency that cannot really be made explicit easily. I will do my best, although Jacques Derrida and Wittgenstein and Heidegger are better at that. Beast from the sea, hybridity and mimicry. Revelation 13 moves from the heavenly battle between the dragon and heavenly beings to focus on the dynamics between the beasts and human community. So there is a dynamic here compared to the liminal line between the both sides. It's not in darkness, it's not in light it happens. It is in the clearing, the Lichtung. Only there we can have truth and existence and permanence. Why has people fallen into impermanence? Unwillingly, of course. Well, they have fallen into that because of the same mistaken understanding of reality as Plato and Newton and so forth. The idea of a preemptive a priori either or. Either or can only come afterwards, once the yin and yang are accepted. Only then we can have the wholeness. Otherwise, we will have only hybridity. If you think of an animal or a monster that is half sea and half land. The monsters here are depicted as having this hybridity, this wish for monosemic, having land marked features and sea marked features. As we see further down, line 8, reminiscent of Daniel 7, this monster also rises from the sea, a geographical location saturated with mythical significance. The sea, thalassa, typically represent the physical sea, specifically the Mediterranean, but it also is associated with the primordial sea, the place of conflict between God and the monsters of chaos. They are all stemming from the same source, and to fully accept the source is to have all the oppositions of ground and of land. This is the primordial start, not a big bang of only substance or essence. No, something that contains both emptiness and fullness, and therefore is much fuller, or having the capacity of being much fuller than either or. Do remember what is said in quantum mechanics. The biggest two oppositions in reality are particle and wave. There are no greater oppositions. They both are needed to have a full reality. You cannot have pure, untainted goodness without having both. Otherwise, you will always taint the goodness. It will be a hybrid. So this is this picture of one only that has, unbeknownst to anyone defending Christianity and the Bible, and it also applies to other religions and of course philosophy. It's coming underneath like a picture of exclusiveness, and it's possessed everyone in the West, now fleeing from the church. And the example I gave originally here is unbeatable until you understand quantum mechanics and what really is purity of goodness. But there is no evil at all, is only when the original first substance is accepted, not like an essence. I would like to end before going into more comments with where I found the depiction of the high features of both land creatures and sea creatures. Here we have it, page 121. Though John is indebted to earlier models of Leviathan, and especially Daniel 7-8. He recreates this monster as a hybrid between being whose body is like that of a leopard, its feet being like a bear, and a mouth like a lion. This is a surprising move, as the expected depiction of Leviathan is at odds with this new monstrous being, who has the familiar multiple heads of the sea serpent, but also possesses features of land animals. I would say this strengthens the understanding of a revelation as a call for goodness against the ideas probably shared by the author of the article of one-sidedness, of this monstrous hybridity of monocelia. They are not even confined to the sea. It is not our knowledge that leads us astray, it is our mistaken belief of how purity comes by. Kalle, please come in.
Thank you. Let me go to page 18 in the PDF. Page 18 in the PDF, and it's page 124. Print out 124. It's this last paragraph on 124. Unlike the two other monsters, the identity of the beast from the earth is not as clear. Due to the beast's provenance from the earth, scholars have generally argued that it represents local Indonesian support of the Roman imperial cult rather than Rome itself, which was considered a foreign entity. However, within this larger framework, there are many divergent opinions on the exact identity of the beasts. Proposals include the priests and priestesses in the local imperial cult, the administrators, etc., etc. So here, my point is, this beast from the earth is the interior enemy, while the Roman Empire is the exterior enemy. So you need, so to say, John needs both enemies. So in today's terms, it's the enemy within the church. So the beast from the earth, I would say, is the enemy in the church, or very close to the church anyhow. The Jews, perhaps Jerusalem. So it's the local indigenous support. Could be.
Yeah, sounds very good.
Thank you. And let me see, and I like this. Let me take footnote 73. Footnote 73. Sometimes footnotes are important. 73. Using Girard's language, the Lamb of Revelation 5 would be the original model, and the beast from the sea, the rival, to become like the original Girard, violence, and the sacred. And let me, to illustrate the problem, is I would like to take Wittgenstein's famous rabbit and duck.
The duck rabbit.
Thank you. Duck. No, it's actually a rabbit duck. Most of us, most of the listeners are familiar with this, but it's still so cute, and I think it's important to take it up. And today I discovered new aspects to this. There is this. So if you look in this direction, it looks like a duck, but if you look towards the right, it looks like a hare. So you could say, let us now compare it with this footnote 73. The lamb would be the original model, and the beast from the sea, the rival. So I think this is, if you would use that argumentation to understand this image, you would go wrong. So it's like asking, is the canning the rabbit before the duck? Or is the duck or Jesus before Satan?
I see what you mean, yeah. Is it a duck first or is it a rabbit first? Very good, yeah.
Although I'm aware in theologically speaking, the Bible, Satan did his rebellion afterwards, after the creation, but still it's very easy that you go wrong. So it's not that
most people do today, or almost everyone.
Yeah, of course, we are speaking of details. No, it's not details, it's about fine-tuning. Of course, it could be that lamb in one way is the original model. Of course, light, but then it would be like saying light is first and then darkness comes later.
Yes.
And that would be completely a mistake. So you need, the opposition must be there right from the beginning, otherwise you will get it wrong.
Yes.
Even Girard, this great thinker, he made a mistake, I think. And another thing, we are speaking about hybrid. This is a very important hybrid. Let me see. This hybrid is not perhaps the best because we have it on page 120. Let me see. Let me go to 120. No, it's actually here. And the beast from the sea is a hybrid creature that is not only dangerous but also impure. I like the word impure here. It's appropriate. And if we go back to this image, it's actually a hybrid creature. Usually, people take it either as a rabbit or as a duck. But in fact, it's a hybrid feature. But also taken by themselves, you get, so to say, impure animals. Duck was perhaps a clean animal in the Bible for the Jews to eat. Rabbit was impure, absolutely. So in Leviticus 11:6, rabbits are unclean because they do not have a divided hoof and chew cud. And let me see exact quotation. The rabbit. So the Leviticus 11:6 says, the rabbit, though it chews the cud, does not have a divided hoof. It is unclean for you. So it's partially clean, partially unclean. It chews the cud, okay, clean, that's fine, but does not have a divided hoof.
No.
So anyhow, but this combination together of a rabbit and duck, it definitely makes it unclean. That's what makes it fascinating. So you could see, okay, a rabbit is a very cute animal, but still, it's actually so you have a combination. I would love to have Wittgenstein's opinion on this.
I also think of the example of Roger Penrose, that the tennis game between Roger Federer and his opponent, where this be Boris Becker, that the game from if you take it from the audience, it seems like it is decided in some way, and it had to be that way. It's deterministic from the point of view of a perspective, and they only see one side of the ambiguity. They only have the duck, they don't have the rabbit, or even better, they don't have the before. And we know now that people in the time, in the biblical time, and Jesus and so forth, they saw the world that way. It is pretty new with the left hemisphere, which is exclusive. And that changed Christianity completely to become something very different, slowly, but it worked underneath. And it's very hard to, so to speak, be explicit about it. What did actually happen? Well, it was a slow shift going from the right hemisphere that has the whole tennis game and the before and also the after, to be only in the after position. And then you have to rebuild ambiguity afterwards, which is not the same thing at all. It's like you would be out of sync, so to speak.
Absolutely, and Macumber says that either-or thinking is typical of the left hemisphere, and it's
either or before. And to have a proper understanding of either or, you need to have an acceptance of the two differences. And in a way, the left hemisphere is demoralized because it uses good and bad as it chooses to. It chooses either the duck or the rabbit. And
absolutely. And in this context, we have to also remember the family resemblance metaphor by Wittgenstein. And his point is that you cannot draw hard boundaries between things.
No.
Like in a family, okay, mother looks a little bit different from father, but they are still one and the same family.
Yes, it's a family resemblance. And too sharp a difference, that's the problem. Yeah, very good, yeah.
And today, said within parentheses to our audience, I use microphone for the first time, September the 11th, and I hope if somebody wants to comment on the sound quality, I hope you were able to listen better, hear me
You
better.
are much clearer now. It's a fantastic difference. It's a fantastic difference.
And let us. Thank you.
It's very good that you are clearer. You play an important role in this, I think.
And let us end this with this good picture in front of us. And I think this is it gives a soothing image to look at this rabbit duck image.
Indeed, very good. Thank you very much, Kalle Lundahl. Thank you very much for everyone joining in. Have a very pleasant morning, day, afternoon, or night, wherever you are. Bye-bye for now.